This morning, we're kicking off the second week of Life on Mission, and if you were here last week, you caught how we've been talking about this four-chair discipleship model, and we talked about the first chair being that come and see chair, and this idea that it's literally just show up, and you might not be in a space where you believe in Jesus or you're following him, but it's a chair that there's so much opportunity and potential, and you're still so valued by God. And we're hoping that if you're in that chair, you continue to ask questions as you're probably seeking some spiritual answers and spiritual truth. So that's the first one we looked at. The second one was follow me, and this chair is one where you're saying, yeah, I'm in. And you might not be all in all the time, but you're saying, I believe in Jesus, I want to follow you, and I've now found my identity in you, and I believe that I'm valued in you. So you've kind of taken that step to walk into a more committed relationship. And then the third chair is this, you become fishers of people, and that's the calling that's been placed on our life, where Jesus calls us to go and make disciples, to fish for others, to share the gospel. And if you're in that space, you have a concern for the spiritual lives of your friends, and you're more involved in some servanthood and leadership, and you're dependable, faithful, all those things. Well, this week we want to just open up the fourth chair conversation, and we're going to do that through having some guests in that are walking us through some of their journey and what that looks like. And so the fourth chair is go and bear fruit. And it's the idea that you're growing in your faith. And Jesus using that illustration that a healthy tree is producing fruit. And so a healthy spiritual life is producing fruit. And it's this idea that we're involved in the lives of others. We are on mission, clearly seeking to make disciples. And as Jesus said, go and make disciples, we've caught on to the fact that that's actually a present tense thing all the time. As you are going, you're called to make disciples. So whatever it is in life, you're thinking about, hey, how do I reach others with the gospel? And you have a burden on your heart for the people around you. And so that's the fourth chair. And we're going to talk with a few guests this week about what that looks like in life and in journey. So today, how many of you know Jeff Martens, the outreach pastor from Cornerstone Community Church? Awesome. Do you know them, Jeff? Yes? By name? No? Yeah?
Of course.
That's all right. I'm just teasing. So we do want to hear Jeff's story, but as usual, we've got some fun rapid-fire questions, and you can confirm that you have not seen these ahead of time.
I can confirm.
All
I'm
right.
very curious.
Right on. So not as many, and they're maybe not quite as hard, but still, they'll give you some challenge. All right. Greatest place to get pizza in Noddle?
Pizza Hut. No, wait, hold on. Bricks and Barley.
Bricks and Barley. Nice.
Yeah.
Okay. Should water park slides be more dangerous than they are?
Yeah, they should.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Can you elaborate, like how?
Faster.
Yeah.
Larger launches. You see those on like YouTube and stuff.
Nice.
That should be more regular part of a water park, I think.
I agree. Your dream motorcycle?
KTM Adventure. It's like a adventure style
Nice.
sport touring bike.
Did it used to be a BMW?
Could have been. Yeah,
Okay,
it's probably one or
okay.
two.
All right, okay.
You've
All right.
asked me that before?
Well, I just remember you talking about ripping a BMW around Ireland.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
So, okay.
Yeah.
Obeying all speed limits. But, yeah. Country you can't wait to visit next?
Probably New Zealand or Australia.
Nice. Genre of music that should be illegal?
Genre.
Country.
Bagpipe genre.
Bagpipe genre?
I don't know. I like
Jeez.
bagpipe music sometimes. I don't know.
Oh, gosh.
I appreciate all genres.
All
I wouldn't
right.
want to eliminate any.
Math or English?
Math.
Math. Starbucks or Balzac's?
Balzac's.
Balzac's. If Tom Cruise showed up and said, Jeff, I can't do this anymore, can you take the lead in the next Mission Impossible? Would you do it?
Absolutely.
Legitimately, you would do it?
Yeah. Well, I don't know. I'd have to think through how terrible I would be in that role, but there's definitely an appeal to it that I would. My instinct would be yes.
Nice.
Yeah.
Right on. If you were not in full-time ministry, what would you be doing?
That is a great question. I think about that often.
Building water parks? No?
I don't know. Something in tech, maybe, in the tech world.
Nice. Okay. Very cool. Awesome. Well, hey, as we've talked about this week, we're Life on Mission, and certainly know you to be a guy on mission, Jeff, over many years with camp ministry, church ministry. But even though you know a lot of these students and a lot may know you, maybe just give us kind of a brief overview of where you've been, sort of how you arrived in the Niagara area, how you arrived at Cornerstone. Maybe give us a brief history.
Sure. Yeah. So I am from Vineland. Any Vinelanders in the house? Don't be shy. Yep. Okay. Here we go. I grew up in Vineland. Grew up going to St. Anne's Community Church out near Smithville, kind of in the sticks there. I grew up going to Eden. I went to youth group at Vineland Mennonite Brethren Church at Vineland. I was really involved at Camp Crossroads growing up. I went as a camper, and then I got really involved as a staff to the LIT program there. So I don't know exactly what the makeup of this group would be, but probably maybe a similar experience, at least to a bunch of you growing up in a church environment and plugging into the different things around Niagara that are connected. After high school, I didn't really know what I wanted to do with my life, so I went to Bible school in BC. So I did a year there, and then I ended up doing a second year there. It was like a leadership development course. So I spent 2 years out there, came back, still wasn't sure what I wanted to do, so I actually really liked history, so I went to started going to school for history. And then like halfway through that degree, I was like, I need a break. And so I did a program through Cape and Ray called Asia Practicum program. And so I went overseas for a good chunk of a year, mostly India, but several other countries throughout Southeast Asia. And then I came back and I was like, felt maybe, as some of you can relate to, just not a real clarity on what the future of my life looked like. So I was still kind of working towards becoming a teacher. At the time, I had a girlfriend from Alberta, so I was planning to move to Alberta to finish my degree at the University of Lethbridge. And then I got a call out of the blue if I wanted to be the youth pastor at Cornerstone Community Church. So I've been at Cornerstone for 12 years now. That's a church in Niagara-on-the-Lake. And I said no right off the bat. Wasn't at all interested in being a pastor. That wasn't something I had in mind as a career goal. And I said, well, I'm moving to Alberta anyway, so it doesn't really work. So, and then as I thought about it more, as I talked to more people, somehow my mind changed, and I just felt like that was the right decision. I can't really describe it other than it was a sense of peace around. That was the right decision for me. And so it was kind of a new community for me. From Vineland, Niagara-on-the-Lake's kind of like a little bit like your enemy in some sense. I don't know if you can relate to that, but there's a bit of a like Lincoln versus Niagara-on-the-Lake vibe out there. So it was like on the other side of the canal. So that's way far, all the way over there. So it's I don't know if you know this. It's a lot further from Virgil to Vineland than it is from Vineland to Virgil, apparently, because we always had to go to Virgil if we wanted to hang out with people from Niagara-on-the-Lake. Anyways, that's me ranting a little bit on some past stuff, I guess. So Niagara-on-the-Lake was a new community for me. Got plugged into that church, and I've been there ever since. So that's a little bit of kind of how I got into this role. It was not what I was aiming for. And then I've just really felt a sense of belonging, and that's where I'm supposed to be right now for that part of that church community. So,
right on. Yeah. And I know they're glad to have you for sure. So, yeah. Life on Mission. So we know, again, that you are a guy that's passionate about others. And, as we think about this go and bear fruit idea, this fourth chair, in your life, where did you first start to see fruit showing up? Like, where did you start to see God really working, where you sense that, this is what I'm called to, and I'm loving life doing this? What would you say?
Yeah, so I was trying to think about how exactly. Sometimes we use the term fruit in different ways. I typically think of fruit primarily, at least first of all, as the fruit of the Spirit in your life, as like how Christ-like are you? Is your character or your actions as the motivations of your heart in an alignment with Christ, with Jesus? And so I first was thinking about that kind of through that lens of when did I start to feel the actual transformational power of Christ in my life? And it's happened at different, like if you look back, often I find you don't always see what's going on, like what God's doing in your life during, like in the present. it's often when you look back that you can kind of see, I can kind of see how God was using that experience to shape me in a different way. So, like for me, my time at Camp Crossroads was an opportunity to really begin to understand and think about leadership as influence and as an opportunity to serve other people. And so that was a huge, I think at one point that was like, for me, it was like a moment of, or a season of understanding that I have influence over other people, and I can actually use that influence to like exert power over them, or I can use that influence to like serve them and actually prop them up and to be, so the concept of servant leadership was like the camp environment for me, particularly Camp Crossroads, was like, that was, I think, something God really began to start in my life. I have this moment there where it was like, I've shared this story before, and when I was a youth pastor for 7 years, so the youth always made fun of me when I shared the story, but I'll share it again. There was like this moment where there was like, after the week you clean your cabin, and there was like pee like all over the floor, and I had this like moment of like, do I clean this pee up, or do I like just let someone else do it, or call in the guys to like clean it up after themselves?
Like the hazmat guys?
Yeah, they're like they're still there, and you're cleaning. You're like, am I going to make them come back and clean this, or am I clean it? And like, it seems like so bizarre, but there was like something about like, I almost felt like God was like prompting me, like, clean the pee up, because you have to like learn what it means to serve people, and even like the crap and other stuff that comes out of them. Like, that's part of what it means to be serving people. Anyways, it's a weird story, but it's like oddly this moment that stands out to me as what it means to be like, to serve people. So, when I was in Bible school, that was a time for me where, I think the idea of like enemy love, which is like, not that I had like enemies at Bible school, but like people that you just socially don't really get along with, people that, you naturally maybe don't like because of whatever variety of reasons. But there is like a real moment of conviction around, like, I actually have to love and care for the best interest of people that I don't even like naturally like. And so that was like, I think there was like a season of kind of even learning and processing that for me in that time. I've done a lot of traveling in my life, both through church and through personal opportunities. And there's something about getting outside of your world and your culture that allows you to see into yourself a little bit clearer, and to like really be in an environment that's really different in a lot of ways, that brings clarity to you. And for me, traveling, being overseas in different cultures, even being in cultures that are like especially not Christian, like India, like blatantly like primarily a Hindu Muslim country, that gave me an exposure to the world that I think like it somehow both gave me a love for the world in a new kind of way, and like almost like a self-reflective time for me to like understand myself a bit more in that time. So there's a lot that God can do in you as you begin to understand kind of the layers of motivation that are actually driving a lot of what you do and say and think. And so you don't want to become too self-focused in your life, but there's a real like fruit that can come in your life that God can change you when you begin to understand what is actually going on in your heart. What's actually driving your decisions, what's actually driving your concerns, what's driving your actions. And the clearer you can get with those types of things, the more you can like offer that up to God and say, God, like, change me here. I give this to you. And it's that heart foundational level where God does a lot more work on the outside, because you're getting at a root issue on the inside, if that makes sense. So travel was a time for me where I did a lot of that, where God was doing a lot of that in me. Since working at Cornerstone, there's been a few particular things where I would say generally God was kind of creating a love for, you could kind of classify as like the outsider. So we have a program at our church called Meals Plus, and it was a way to connect with people that are kind of on the margins of our society, maybe often not seen, or kind of are very lonely, that are kind of forgotten. And so, again, being able to just begin to see your community, your world, with the love that God has for it, and to be able to see things that you aren't necessarily, you see them in your community, but you're not actually like seeing them. If that makes sense. That I think that certainly you've got a long way to go, but there's just through that ministry, I got connected to a few key relationships that I think God began to give me a vision for, for our community, and a love for the brokenness of our community.
Yeah, in your answer, you talked a lot or hinted at this teachability and learning and being open to God's Spirit working and developing a love for others, and that's certainly part of that discipleship piece. Can you think, Jeff, in your life of people that have had an impact on you, that have really inspired you or challenged you, in your discipleship journey, particularly when it comes to, sharing the gospel with others, people that have had a great influence on you to that extent?
Yeah, so I'll name some names, but I'll also say this, that for me at least, it hasn't often been like a formalized, hey, will you be my disciple? Or can I be your disciple and you be my discipler? Like, there hasn't been a lot of, like, there's been some specific programs along the way, like a LIT program at Camp Crossroads, a leadership program I did at Bible school. So there's been like some intentional programs where there's, some formality to how you're learning and being trained. But a lot of that, I think, has been just through people investing in me relationally, like taking effort relationally with me. And out of that context comes conversation and, a sense of intimacy where you can open up a bit more about, or you can have deeper conversations. So, as I was thinking about this, one person in particular, early on, especially as my time at Camp Crossroads, was Andrew Hebert. He was a leader for me that, in many ways, just particularly modeled servant leadership, and so just to see that and to be shaped by that, again, in a lot of informal ways, but to have his vision of leadership, to sit under his vision of leadership, really shaped the way in which I thought about how the leader that I wanted to be. So he was one, and then another was Doug Hebert. So I guess the Heberts is I don't know if there's any Heberts in the crowd, but Doug was a pastor at Cornerstone when I started, and then him and his family moved to Burundi, returned back to Burundi, and so he was just very, very intentional with me. Still to this day, he works out of the office, and I see him often, and someone who just made a point to invest in me relationally, and out of that, there was also tons of opportunities that came where, I think he was someone that said, come along with me. I'm doing this thing. Come join me. We'll do it together. Can have some good conversations along the way. And so, so those would be two. And then the other thing I would say to this question is, more than just like individuals, I would say the community, especially my church community, where there's maybe not you could start naming people specifically, but there is a way in which you're formed by your community that I don't think you always realize, the way in which you're being influenced by the culture of the community you're in, the priorities, the different voices that can speak, and they all kind of shape you in ways that you're not always aware of. But broadly speaking, the community, the church community that I had, friendship communities that I had, those had a huge influence on me, forming, again, how I understood Jesus, how that influence in speaking the voice of Jesus into my life, and to help me move forward in what it means to follow him. So
that's cool.
Yeah,
community investing in people and being part of that is so key. We got a couple minutes left. Jeff, it's not always easy being a disciple of Christ follower. and sometimes seasons are dry and there doesn't seem to be much fruit. How do you persevere through those times when it feels like nothing's happening? Can you share any thoughts on that?
Yeah, for sure. I've definitely experienced that, and it's. I wouldn't say there's been like long years of it, but like more like seasonally throughout a year at different times, where you feel like, your intimacy with God is not there, and also like what you feel like people aren't responding well to what you're doing. For me, this is where like just having faith really makes a big difference, of choosing faith. Some verses that I had like on my board on my desk in my office. Zechariah 4:10 says, "Do not despise small beginnings, for the Lord rejoices to see the work begin." And so that was like a verse I would, when like the numbers were low, when you feel like people aren't really engaging with what you're doing, that just do not despise small beginnings. That was like a word that I feel like God spoke over me, of just like holding on to. And then the other one kind of tied to that is 1 Corinthians 15, which I'll just read. It says, 15:58, "My dear brothers and sisters, stand firm, let nothing move you. Always give yourself fully to the work of the Lord, because you know that your labor in the Lord is not in vain." So those two ideas of don't despise these small beginnings, feels like nothing's going on, but the Lord rejoices to see the work begin. And then this other idea of your labor in the Lord is not in vain. And so when things are dry, when it feels like there's not much going on, just having that faith to say, Lord, I feel like nothing's happening, but you have said it's not in vain. And so I just want to focus on what you're calling me to, and trust you with what's happening. And so that has been those two verses in particular have been huge for me in kind of walking forward in faith. And then just generally, just the confidence that God is accomplishing his purposes in this world. And to have that vision of the world, that the kingdom of God is moving forward, and God's going to do what he wants to do in this world. So I don't know. I could speak more about discouragement and what do you do with discouragement, but those that's what came to my mind. Those are things that I've clung to, particularly in seasons of dryness.
It's a great word. Yeah, we are about at a time actually. So I want to say, can we say thank you to Jeff for being here today?
Shouldn't have shared the peace story.
What's that?
I shouldn't have shared the peace story. It took too long. Sorry.
Well, when you said you got a phone call, before, I thought it was somebody breaking up with you from Alberta. That's what I thought.
Oh yeah, that's how I knew the Lord was speaking to me. Broke up.
Yeah. We were going to ask if it was, never mind.
Doesn't matter.
Okay.
Doesn't matter.
Hey, just real quick before you head out, today it is Tuesday. We have junior guys meeting for the Foundry at lunch, and again, there's a couple of spots left for Celebrate You with pizza lunch on a Friday, so definitely grab a few friends and sign up if you haven't already. We want to say God bless, have a great day, and we're looking forward to tomorrow. Serena Denome, an alumni, will be here speaking, sharing her journey, and we're super excited about that as well. So God bless, have a great day.